Let's go back to number 20, one of a few goaltenders to make our top 50. Tuukka Rask at number 20. You kind of forget what a great season he had for the Boston Bruins because of the global pandemic, the pause, and of course maybe all the attention he got for leaving the bubble early after losing 3 of those 4 starts. Tuukka Rask, still a really good goaltender.
Yeah, no question about it. He was the runner-up for the Vezina Trophy this past season to Connor Hellebuyck, so that tells you right off the bat he had a pretty good season, .929 save percentage. You know, Tuukka, when his career, he's had 5 30-win seasons in his career. So when I think about goaltenders, there's only a handful of them that every year they're the same guy. I mean, Kenny Danica was lucky to play with one of them. Marty Brodeur was one of the all-time greats, maybe the best ever. Every year, rain or shine, you knew what you had in goal with Marty Brodeur. And then with Tuukka Rask, I think he is similar in that manner that when the Boston Bruins, you know, they look back there, he's in net, they feel real comfortable they've got a chance to win. Originally drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2005, he was 21st overall. As I say, 33 years of age now, and that was a good trade for the Boston Bruins to get Tuukka Rask. He's been their guy for a while.
Well, you mentioned I was fortunate enough to play in front of a goaltender for a long time, and there's such comfortability for a defenseman and a group of guys when you know you have a constant in net. And that's what Tuukka Rask has been for the Boston Bruins. Yes, they're very structured defensively, and they help him out as well. But they just know when they do make a mistake, and it's rare because it's in the Bruins' DNA for years that they're going to be a tough team to score on, a tough team to get good offensive chances. But you know you've got Tuukka Rask there to make the big save time and time again. He's been terrific for the Bruins, and that is a great feeling for a defenseman. I speak from experience where I know that I could be a little riskier or do some things or try to stand up in the play, and if I got beat 1-on-1, I got Marty Brodeur back there. The Bruins feel the same way about Tuukka Rask.
And I would just add one thing. I would, and again, not to be critical, but we have to be straightforward on these lists, how we feel. I don't think I would have Tuukka as high as number 20 on my list. Not that he wouldn't be on the list, but one thing I keep in mind, he really benefits, and I think it's to his advantage, to have Jaro Halak there as a really solid number 2. I mean, last year during the regular season, Tuukka played 41 games. Now, the Bruins played roughly 70 games. So when you think about a list, you know, Connor Hellebuyck is further down the list. He played in more games and was under more fire. Right. So for me, Tuukka should be on the list, and I give him all the credit for being that guy who's consistent, but I don't know if I'd have him at 20.
How about at number 19, Brayden Point? No argument. He had the most goals of all skaters in the 2020 postseason with 14. With all the weapons they have down there in Tampa, this guy might be their most dangerous one.
You don't win Stanley Cup championships without guys like Brayden Point. And you talked about all the firepower the Tampa Bay Lightning have, so you think, you maybe don't need guys here and there because you got Kucherov, you've got Hedman on the back, and you've got so many talented hockey players. But Brayden Point is such a complete player. A third rounder. You have to find gems in the later rounds. That's a mid-round pick, and boy, has he come into his own, could have easily won the Conn Smythe trophy. The motor's always going. I love that about Brayden Point. He's so responsible defensively as well, but he was magnificent in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's only getting better, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are lucky to have a guy that just does it all. And now his offensive game has even gone to another level, EJ, and he's going to continue to get better and better in this league and climb up the list. But it's amazing that he's a third rounder. That's what successful organizations do. Scouting staff deserves a lot of credit because that's how you win Stanley Cup championships. It's not just your top guys that have to perform or your top draft picks. It's finding gems. And he's turned into a superstar.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. I mean, he had 92 points 2 seasons ago. In the offseason that year, he had the double hip surgery, remember, so it took him a while to get going. But to what I always talk about, driving winning, Brayden Point really drives winning for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's a terrific player.
Yeah, they won it all this year, the first Stanley Cup in Tampa since 2004. So Brayden Point coming in at number 19. Getting Malkin at number 18. This is one of those guys that you look at his resume and you're like, wow, there are 17 players on our list ahead of this guy? You think playing with Sidney Crosby just hurts that numerical kind of where we have him in our top 50?
I think no question it does. He easily could be a top 10 player. And for all the things that Evgeny Malkin has accomplished, he still gets overlooked the last couple of seasons every once in a while by the hockey world. I can't quite understand it, but let's not forget when Sidney Crosby a few years ago was going through injury troubles and concussion and all the different kinds of things that ailments that he had. Malkin carried the Pittsburgh Penguins. This guy competes as hard as anybody. Never mind all the skill, the size. I love his compete for a superstar, EG. I think that's so important when you see top guys that can rely on their talent a lot. But he, come playoff time, big moments, or when Crosby was out, this guy puts the team on his back. He's that good. Easily, for me, could be a top 10 guy, no question about it. But we do have a tendency every once in a while, because when you've got two legends on your team and one guy's name is Sidney Crosby, you get overlooked a little bit. And that's tough to say with all the trophies and Stanley Cups that he has won.
You know, it would be nice if we could do it all over again and put Evgeny Malkin on a team where he was the #1 center. He's always kind of been 1A and 1B with Sidney Crosby, and that's been great for the Pittsburgh Penguins organization. It's one of the reasons, maybe the biggest reason, why they've won 3 Stanley Cups in their time together there with the Pens. But he is a terrific, terrific player, a lot of accomplishments, as you mentioned. And this season, 74 points, more than a point a game still at 34 years of age. Still getting it done, and still very difficult to play against when he is going at his best.
All right, Evgeny Malkin checking in at number 18. Ej, and you've said throughout this countdown that you base and you kind of weight these players based on how they help their team as a whole succeed. How about the goalie position? Andrei Vasilevskiy at number 17.
Yeah, goalie is the tough one for me. I've said it before on the show, JMO. I think what I would do is I would put the goalies together on a separate list and then try to find a place to put them on this list. But certainly for me, my top goalie would be this guy right here, Andrei Vasilevskiy, for a number of reasons. And look at him get that glove up. He's almost impossible to beat low. And you're going to see in some of these clips, just great leg work, getting those pads out there, Dano. I mean, he's just an incredible, you know, ability to get to places and to track pucks well and just be on top of things all the time.
Just watching him play and watching some of these saves, he oozes confidence. He thinks he's going to stop every puck. And I know every goaltender is going to say they think they're going to stop every puck, but you believe it as far as your teammate or a defenseman in front of them. They're going, this guy just is so confident in his game. He's so athletic. He's big. He plays a lot of games. He's terrific. And I think the game has evolved or shifted in a different direction since the day I played, where goaltenders were the emphasis. If you didn't have a superior goaltender, you couldn't win a Stanley Cup championship. So now maybe they get looked at a little differently, because now you say, well, you can win a little bit more in today's game.
You have a good goal.
Good goaltender. And goaltenders would be #1 on our list because it's the most important position, especially back 15, 20 years ago. But now we maybe don't look at it that way as much. But the Tampa Bay Lightning have one of the best for me, in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, and you see the numbers there. 927, by the way, in the postseason, the return to play save percentage, 1.90 goals against, playing every minute of all those 25 games en route to the Stanley Cup. Terrific goaltender.
Impressive stuff. And like you said, this guy plays a lot of games, too. He's not splitting it with the backup either. He's playing the lion's share of these games. Wasn't pulled in any single game this regular season. Pretty darn good. And again, the most important position, yet we only had 3 in our entire countdown. Braden Holtby not on that list. Yeah, so Andrei Vasilevskiy check in at 17. The guy that centers that top line, one of the best lines in all of hockey, Patrice Bergeron. He's been one of the best players, two-way forwards in the game for a long time. The 4-time Selke Trophy winner coming in inside our top 20. Dan, now what do you make of this guy?
Well, my top 10 would be 30 guys, because he's another guy. I don't care if he has 60, 70 points, maybe not elite offensive numbers like the top guys, the McDavids and the Dreisaitl's and the Panarins, but the complete game, what he brings. I talked about hockey IQ for Patrick Kane. Well, he's 1A as far as smarts in the ice. You need to win a big draw, you have Patrice Bergeron out there. You need a big play at the right time in the playoffs, he makes the big play. And those are things that, just not accumulating stats, his offensive numbers seem to always be at the right time. He's just one of those guys that you can't win without. That's why they've won the Stanley Cup. Patrice Bergeron, he's been an elite player in this game. You're up 3-2, you're down 3-2, the game is tied. Who's going over the boards? Patrice Bergeron. You can't say that with all the superstars.
You're absolutely right, Dano. He is someone you use him in all situations. First minute of a period, last minute of a period, penalty killing, power play. Anytime during the game, you can use Patrice Bergeron, and he can be really effective and drive and help you win games. What an accomplished player he is. And, it's funny because I'm old enough to remember when he first came into the league, he was a second-round pick. He had a significant concussion issue, forced him to miss a lot of time. So as hockey fans, we are all lucky that Patrice Bergeron was able to recover and become the player he has been because, boy, he has been something special.
They have that it factor as well.
Yep.
I mean, you can't measure it.
Right.
And I say that, humbly say that, being on 3 Stanley Cup championship teams, certain players just, not only do they have skill, they have that it factor that you just feel good going into a big game in the playoffs that, yeah, we're going to win. Or we are going to win that game 7 of a series because we got a guy like Patrice Bergeron.
Jack Eichel, he certainly seems like he has the it factor. Maybe not it in Buffalo yet, but they get the right pieces. It could work up there in Buffalo. This guy, 5 years in the NHL, his points per game has only increased in all 5 seasons. Feels like we haven't even seen the top yet for Jack.
Yeah, and this is the beauty of the list, right? Because we just talked about Patrice Bergeron, who is now, 35 years of age and has been in this league a long time and is such an accomplished player. And then one step ahead of them now, as we sit here in 2020, we have Jack Eichel ahead of Bergeron. And you know what? For me, I think that's right now in 2020 because, look at the skill that Jack Eichel has. First of all, he's got a physical advantage over a lot of guys because he's just so big and long and skilled. Look, he's making this look way too easy because he is that kind of talented player. So his best days are obviously moving forward. I think he had a big season this year and took a big step forward, even though the Buffalo Sabres struggled. 78 points on the year, 36 goals. He's going to be a 100-point guy in this league, guys. He's going to be a guy that maybe can get 50 goals, down the road. He's someone that the Buffalo Sabres, if they manage it right, they can build a really strong team around.
Taylor Hall, you know him well, Dano. How does he help Jack Eichel and maybe increase his status next year? He's at 15 this year.
Imagine the speed if these two guys are together and flying down the wing. Taylor Hall, Jack Eichel doesn't have to put everything upon himself. He can, move it to Taylor Hall if Taylor Hall has the type of year that he's expecting to have in a couple of years removed from a Hart Trophy as well. So a one-year deal, it's a nice fit to go along with Jack Eichel, but I don't think the movie has played out just quite yet with Jack Eichel. As the Buffalo Sabres get better, I think you're going to see him become a top 3 player in the National Hockey League. If they don't get there, that's the subjective part we always talk about. Well, he doesn't make the playoffs. He's not on a good team. Yet he gets 100 points, but how do we put him as far as a top 10 player? But right now, as far as size, skill, speed, win a game single-handedly, he's one of those few guys in the National Hockey League that can beat you single-handedly. He's that gifted, that talented.
And, the other thing, Dano, when we talk about compare a Bergeron to an Eichel, will Eichel learn the intangibles that Bergeron has really thrived on in his game over the years? Now, I'm not going to say Jack Eichel is going to be a Patrice Bergeron type of player, but will he have some of those intangibles that help his team win and help make his teammates better? That is still to be determined. I think he will get some of those, but he's so young in this, like you said it best, the movie is, we're still watching the early frames.
Yeah.
Success breeds winning, or shall I say, when he's successful, his team gets better, he's going to start doing all those other little things because you like to win and you like having success. It's not just about offensive numbers. And for a young player, you learn that along the way. I think Jack Eichel has that potential as the Sabres become a contender, a perennial playoff team, and become a contender is what they're hoping for there in Buffalo. But they've got a young stud for many years here to lead the charge, and he's going to only get better.
John Carlson at number 14. Yeah. It feels like 7 years ago, but you think back to what he did at the start of last season, October. 23 points in the month of October out of the gates. Might as well have just handed the guy the Norris Trophy after that month. It was incredible.
And then he didn't end up winning it.
Exactly.
Roman Josi ended up winning it. I'm a big fan of John Carlson, and I thought he should have won the Norris Trophy. That was, I think, a real debate throughout the year. He ended up finishing second. I do think, for John Carlson, I feel like one thing that has worked against him in his career, he's playing with so many high-end guys at the Washington Capitals, and really guys that you fall into the shadow behind, Ovechkin and Backstrom, Kuznetsov in goal. They've had Braden Holtby. They've had some real personalities there and some really high-end players. But Carlson, terrific player, had a great year. I don't know if I'd have him as high on this list as he is, but I still think he's heck of a defenseman.
I especially like the way he played in his own zone this season. I thought he was much better, much more responsible. there would be some deficiencies at times earlier in his career in his own zone as far as, winning battles and making the right decisions with the puck. I thought that got much better. The offensive numbers outstanding. He's a general on the back end, certainly on the power play. And you mentioned all the stars the Capitals have. Yeah, he's feeding some pretty darn good hockey players, but he kind of sets the table a lot of the time, especially on the power play. And what a shot. Accurate, hard. He's a dangerous weapon from the back end. But I did like the way he improved his all-around game in all three zones.
I agree.
Roman Josi comes in one spot ahead of him at number 13. He was the eventual Norris Trophy winner. And when you talk analytics, the analytics community raves about Roman Josi.
Because the puck's on his stick so often. And the zone exits, the zone entries, he's as good as it gets in the National Hockey League. And that's an important factor in today's game. We know that. So Roman Josi is one of those guys. He's been doing it for years in Nashville. And he's a guy that, for me, I use it a lot. But he's really hard to cover because you never know where he is when the guy's always in motion. He's finding holes. He's always moving his feet. He's got speed gliding, EJ. He's also got a terrific shot. Roman Josi is one of those guys that start of a game, start of periods, if he's going, you just know the Nashville Predators are going to have a good night, meaning if he's up ice, if he's got the puck on his stick a lot, Nashville Predators kind of go as Roman Josi does, in my opinion, from the back end.
During the Peter Laviolette era in Nashville, he was a perfect fit for what Peter wanted to do. He wanted his defensemen active. You talk about trying to find him on the ice. He could be anywhere in the offensive zone, and it really creates problems for teams that are trying to defend because all of a sudden, if Roman Josi pops up where you don't expect him to be, somebody else on the Nashville Predators now might be open somewhere else. So he creates a lot of problems. He does handle the puck a lot. He plays a lot of minutes in a game. He's one of an Ironman type that way. He can handle those big minutes and play really well. Terrific player. He's been doing it for a long time, 30 years of age now. Norris Trophy winner, so congratulations on winning the Norris to Roman Josi. But like Carlson, for me, I don't know if I'd have him as high on the list as they are, but both great players, and they help you win.
Hard to argue with that.
He doesn't roam carelessly. That's what I like. Sometimes where a guy's just all over the ice and he becomes a defensive liability. I mean,
he picks his spots.
Picks his spots at the right time, even though he's all over the ice, but he seems to get back in ample time.
Roman carefully, right?
Roman's a good one.
Josi or Carlson, who would you want on your back end if you had to pick between the two?
Oh, boy.
I know. Splitting hairs here.
Oh, boy.
Depends what you need.
Different type of defenseman. Depends what you need. I'd probably go Josi right now. But for the Washington Capitals, the way Carlson fits in, kind of alluding to what you said, EJ, with Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, and Backstrom, he's kind of maybe a better fit.
Absolutely. Depends who you have.
Right.
And he's a right shot guy. He's got the heavier shot. Josi, more of a skater, left shot guy. Both really good players. And they both fit really good where they're at. So I think that's, to discuss who you'd rather have, it always depends on what the fit would be. I think they both are great fits where they are.
Yes.
Carlson with the Capitals and Josi with the Nashville Predators. Both have had great careers.
And good fits in our countdown. 3 players with 85 or more points the last 4 seasons.
Correct.
Those other 2, I should say, Connor McDavid and Nikita Kucherov. Those are superstars. Yeah. Brad Marchand, is he a superstar?
I think so. I mean, he's obviously an interesting player. He's a polarizing player, right? Because he's someone that in his career has been able to get under the skin of opponents, sometimes goes a little too far, and he's probably lost some of those numbers because he's had to sit out being suspended a couple of times during his career, but he's on that line with Bergeron and Pastrnak. Those guys have unique chemistry. Marchand, you talked about earlier in the show, Dano, 3rd-round pick, finding guys in later rounds. He was the 71st overall pick by the Bruins in 2006, 4 30-goal seasons. Just a lot of skill and has worked to be a better player throughout his career, working his way up through junior, coming into the National Hockey League. There were guys that just didn't believe in Brad Marchand. You're too small. You're not going to make it. You're not going to have that kind of impact as a player. Maybe you can be kind of a 4th-line guy. Brad Marchand wasn't having any of that. He was going to be a real deal player. I can remember from when he first arrived in Boston, he was a guy that says, hey, I'm going to score 30 goals. I'm going to be a big-time player here. And he has done all the work to be just that. He has been blessed with playing with some really good players, but he makes those guys go just as they make him go. Brad Marchand, heck of a player.
You mentioned Brad Marchand being a 4th-line player. I think that's where he started his career.
Yeah.
He has worked his tail off to become an elite player in this league.
Absolutely.
And his offensive skills have continued to get better and better throughout his career, and he's done it. You talked about the last 3 years where he's dominated from an offensive standpoint, near the top of the league in offensive production. But that intangible of playing on the edge, and yes, you talk about crossing line once in a while, so be it. That's what makes him such a special player, because you can't shut him down too often, or at least him having an impact in the game. So if he doesn't have a point, he's doing something else to get under the opponent's skin, top player's skin. He's a guy that gets his team engaged in the confrontation. You need that type of player come playoff time. And now, yes, he does score so many big goals, makes big plays. He's just elevated his game to a whole nother level over the last 3-4 years. Yeah. But he's a special player. Yeah. There's no question about it. He's
polarizing. He's one of those guys you hate to see him on the other team, but boy, would you love to have him on your team in the lineup on any given night. At number 11, Patrick Kane, 32 years old. It feels like he's been in the league for 30 years at this point, right? Scored his 1,000th point last January 19th against Winnipeg. Youngest American-born hockey player to do that.
Well, for me, and I'm not going to get into who I'd take out because everybody's a terrific player in the top 10 superstars. But for me, Patrick Kane's a top 10 player all the time, maybe top 5. He's the most intelligent player in the game. He does it. He's not the fastest guy in the league. He doesn't have the hardest shot in the league. He uses his brain, his hockey IQ on a nightly basis. I mean, his head's always up, puck is on his string, and he just seems to always find that open area. EJ knows when to shoot, when to make the play. That's a special quality of any hockey player. It sounds simplistic, but if you watch him on a nightly basis, he always makes the right decision with the puck. Never puts himself in a vulnerable position to lay a big hit on him. I love Patrick Kane, have for years. I know everybody does. He's been in the league for a long time. But when you're in the league that long, and so many great young players, I think you mentioned that, Each, we have a tendency to forget. Patrick Kane is still one of the best in the National Hockey League. But for me, it's always smarts. He's just fantastic. And yes, magical hands.
Yeah, 84 points and a +8 player this year on a team that really struggled to defend. Right. So it tells you how important Patrick Kane was to the Chicago Blackhawks. When we got to the return to play, those old veterans, Kane, Tays, they brought it to the table, and they were able to take the Edmonton Oilers. They sent the Edmonton Oilers out of the bubble, if we remember. So a terrific player, a cat burglar with the puck. He's just got ice water in his veins. He'll hold the puck, hold the puck, hold the puck to make plays, and he's the rare bird in that he is a playmaker on the wing. Usually the playmaker is in the middle. He's on the wing, but boy, what a special player. He's been a treat to watch.
He's so much fun to watch and has been for all those years, 3 cups in 6 years. It's one of those things that maybe the optics test, it hurts these guys that aren't on great teams, right? So when we look at the Hawks next year, if they have a down year, but Patrick Kane has another good year, does he crack the top 10 or does that hurt his cause yet again?
It just seems, what have you done for me lately? And a lot of times it's how your team performs, but he's going to have his numbers. So we just seem to forget at times, because the team's not in the playoffs or doesn't have success. Yeah, they did knock off the Edmonton Oilers, but it just goes to show you, even when he's not on good teams, he's won 3 Stanley Cup championships, and he was a driving force. And when he's not on a good team, he still produces. So, yes, he's a top 10 player for sure. I love him. He's one of my favorite players, I've said, to watch on a nightly basis. I could watch Patrick Kane all day just because of that magical hands, the mind. He just thinks the game so well. He's 3 steps ahead.